heard the DNA, and we have 23 chromosomes, well, 46.
Oh, sure.
23 and 23. So they break all that down, and they, with my daughter, what they did is they would gave her a plasma bag, basically, but she wasn't making enough blood because she had benzene poisoning. She'd acquired that from her painting job. So chemicals and stuff in the ocean, too.
Is that
so
how she developed her kit?
She got too much benzene in her blood, and it stopped making white cells and red cells. People, we don't know because we don't even think about it, but once you go through this stage of working with cancer people or people that get it, you learn a lot. And it was that last one hidden thing after they cleaned her all up. We thought what they would call like remission, but she had already had chemotherapy. She was getting shots in her stomach, and then she finally got approved for a trial, and that's when we went to Tampa, and they call it rebirth, and she actually gets a new. They don't know if she's going to live through it, and a lot of her friends they do for a while, but they were all dead within 2 years. And she went and saw a couple of them.
Clinical trial.
The people. Yeah, people that I lived with them, the people going through it. It's a big, huge process, and it's a totally different lifestyle. I lost weight anyway, but
Do the doctors
it's really
own
sad.
It's a different. Do the doctors own and call it a different DNA structure?
If you have all that. The first.
Blood.
Well, you have to be typed, but not only do you have to be typed, then they break your cells down, look at the T cells, and
no,
they're
I know
so
that.
complicated.
I just wondered if the doctors admitted it.
Yes,
wow.
That's why they called me in to a meeting. They wanted to know about who all I worked for in the government, and had other doctors come in from other countries. Oh, yeah, it's really a big deal. They had the Nordics, the women, some of the women that were Nordics worked there from Norway, and we got to know. It becomes one big family. It's a huge industry, and it's a huge, very, you have to be cleared. There's millions of dollars that go in it. She was taking one pill that was like $750,000 or something. I mean, it's lots and lots of money, lots of people, very good people.
It's unusual that conventional physicians will admit that. You know.
Well, they all work together. Well, they were working. Well,
was it military?
You worked with
the military.
This is why they never cure it, because it's a billion-dollar industry. They have no incentive to ever find the cures for these diseases.
Right.
And we need to somehow as a society, if we want to go from a level 0 to a level 1 society in the Kardashev scale, is that we have to stop monetizing energy and any kind of health and wellness medical stuff, because
it's all about money.
It's just barbaric to monetize. There's no value of a person except for the money they can bill on
That's
insurance.
Exactly
and
right.
Somebody
That's
rich.
right.
So this is just criminal what they did to you, and they could have cured your daughter. But if they cure one, they've got to cure them all. And if they start curing it, then
they don't get the money.
It's right. It's all about money.
It is. That's really a big story.
It was. They were so compassionate in the beginning, and at the end, when they know that, after they can't cure you, then they just sort of. It's sad to watch the video at the last, because her savior. I won't mention names because it's not fair, but I mean I should.
Yeah,
but he was very famous, and he did a lot of TV and all that. But they're very compassionate. His father even died from the same thing my daughter did, and that's why he got into the study of that. But at the last, he just told her what it was going to be like, and that video is on YouTube too. In the beginning when she's positive, and people tracked her on Facebook, and they were her friends on Facebook. And at the end, she was just another number, and they just sit her down and tell her, and they were even cutting out her only hope for what little bit of cleanup to keep her alive at the end, but finally she hemorrhaged in her brain here at the house. And Janet was on the phone when she was leaving the body, but she hung around in her body. She didn't want to leave, and I had to watch her, her stomach go in and out. It was so sad because they only had a window, but since she was already so deep with the cancer and gone through the trial and they did all they could, they had told her that she'd bleed out her eyes, and she did.
Or anything?
Oh no, we didn't get that far because no, it was she was young, and at the end she was here at the house where she wanted to be, and we had a hospice come in right the last because she could still walk and talk like everybody. She was perfectly fine walking around talking. The only thing is that when you're going through all the bad stuff they do to help her, it eats up all the lining in your mouth and on your lips and all the way down through your intestines. It literally eats you up from the end. You have to regrow. It's quite a long process, the trial, and in killing, it kills you and you start over again. Now, see, I didn't go through all that when I died because I didn't have the cancer or the chemicals they put in me, so I had a clean break. She had a terrible thing, but she was trying to prolong her life with cancer, right? But she was hoping to beat it. I could tell you stuff that extraterrestrial parts of me that Janet talked about in the beginning is the fact that those little gray, the reason I could do it was like remote viewing in this life. But see, the part you don't know is Tom and I were sent out. We found each other like Mr. and Mrs. Smith over in Africa. So we worked on some international, we were both investigators, but we were both in military too. So he was Army and I was Navy, but I crossed over into Joint Chiefs of Staff, so to speak, Joint. And so I was trained, and I wore Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine. Okay.
Let me explain to our listeners what you mean by Mr. and Mrs. Smith, because I had this interview with TJ and Tom on my show, and they were each other's assignments. If it came to it, Tom would have killed TJ. And I said to on the show, I said, "Where did you guys first meet?" And Tom says, "Oh, I saw TJ at the end of in my scope." And we went, "What?"
Oh
anyway,
my gosh.
She had been sent on a mission to South Africa, and there was a guy. She didn't know what was going on. They had her. They used TJ like eye candy for a while there. She was tall and gorgeous, right? So they flew her down to South Africa. She didn't know where she's going.
That's great.
On a need-to-know basis, and it's a fancy house,
largest country club in the world.
Golf course in the world. Right?
Yeah, largest country club.
And if I say that, let me just say, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. But anyway, there was some guy she had to go pin a flower. I forget if it was a carnation or a rose, but they said, "Oh, it's like she was the hostess. Here, go pin this flower on him. Welcome." So she pins his flower on his lapel and walks away, and he goes, "Thump," hits the ground, thump, dead. So the assassin on the other end was Tom, TJ's future husband. And so
sounds so weird having you say it.
TJ put the flower on and walked away, and he died.
Well, they didn't kill him.
I don't know. What was
they
your
didn't
reaction
kill him,
when
I wasn't there. I'd already walked back into the building, and they rushed me off. So I wanted to go back and see what was going on. And I said I didn't know what was going on.
In my movie, I go, See, in my movie, I made it that you walked away and you heard the thud. See, because that's what you would do in Hollywood, right? I just Hollywoodized your scene. So you walked away. You didn't know what it was, but I had to. Okay, wait, you can't leave the whole room. You gotta hear the thud and turn around and go, whoa, shocked.
Well, I imagine Hollywood would like your book better than my books. Because mine's dry.
Yeah.
Well, mine's not so pretty like you do.
I'm very good at creating scenes.
Yeah. Yours is. I like listening to yours.
So when you heard about it, how did you know?
I didn't hear about it.
That this guy was dead.
I didn't hear. I learned about it from Tom. No, I was rushed out of there and rushed off into another existence. Well, I knew something because of Viscount, and they rushed me off to England. This is high spice stuff. This is stuff that happened before the Bush-Iraq war.
Right. So
yeah, it's James Bond stuff.
Administration.
Was
it was Reagan.
This your life, or was this in this life? Was this in your life? In this life.
Yeah,
wow.
This was in this life. She was but okay, so you didn't know that you were being used to, they mark people and assassins out there in the. So
I didn't join
enhanced abilities, right?
Well, wait. Let me fill this in.
Whatever.
I was an investigator, Karen, before I was in the. I joined the government May 10th, 1967, while my husband worked for NASA. Okay, and I was working as ambassador of goodwill for the city of Houston, but Yvonne McCutcheons recruited me. I was in the paper with our graduating high school class, so I was a real pretty and a girl with a bunch of other pretty girls. So the government recruited us, and it turned out that Yvonne McCutcheons was a recruiter for women into the government intelligence community.
Oh my gosh!
So, and I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't know that then. I mean, I knew that the government, and they wanted me to go work for the government, and, it was a big thing to get my parents, but I was already recruited out of a James Bond movie with my husband, and we were taken off to the side of a James Bond movie. So I know now because I started piecing it together 50 years later. Yeah, they took me out to everybody.
You were watching a James Bond movie.
James Bond movie.
You were watching a James Bond movie with her boyfriend, which was your future husband.
Wow.
And then they corralled her outside, and what did they say? Let's slow this down.
There was men in black and
okay? So
a cigarette.
What did they say to you when they got?
They asked me if they asked us if we liked the movie because we were in shock because everybody was leaving and going back out Windsor out the front, and they herded us out the side, corralled us, and took us out the side door where you open it up and there's cement and 4 or 5 or maybe 6 cement steps down with a bar. So, they herd us out, and there's like 1 or 2 men behind me and my boyfriend standing on the steps, and then the man in black that smoked, it was like out of X-Files. He looked like that, and he had a cigarette. Right. And so he's the one at the bottom of the stairs looking up. And so we're caught. We're not going anywhere, but we're in shock. We're just 2 teenagers. So, they said, well, how'd you like the movie? And we didn't, we don't know what to say. We just watched a movie and they want to know what we're thinking. And, we feel like we're in a movie, Men in Black, Of course, we didn't know what Men in Black meant. But, back then. So, we both, Steve said first and talked to the guy and said, yeah, that's good and all that. And so he said, well, how would you like to do that kind of work? And my husband was asking a question, and then he looked at me. He said, no, not you, her. And because, I guess they already had plans for him to work at NASA or something. I don't know how that goes. But they looked at me, and I said, me? And they said, yeah, what did you think? How would you like to do that kind of work? So anyway, he went to work for NASA, and I just said, sure, I guess. I don't know. So my husband and I, they said, well, they'd be back in touch, and they just cued us in on it and asked, what we'd think about it. And they left. They didn't keep us there or nothing. They let us go down the stairs, and we went off talking about it in the car. Like, they just said, don't mention it to anybody or anybody. We'll be back in touch. But, don't mention talking to us. But we didn't know who we were talking to, and they didn't tell us who we were talking to. So how are you going to talk about it?
Wow.
But anyway, I'm sure I mentioned it to my parents that, somebody stopped us.
Wow.
But I have to pull the whole thing together, and it's so deep and complicated, the life that I've lived.
Did you ever hear from him again?
Oh, yeah. I wound up working for the government I'd already signed all the government paperwork.
No, I mean those 2 people.
Oh, I don't know. You mean, did I ever see them? I saw a bunch of men when I went to Washington to Langley, and I did the polygraph and retina scan. On my second polygraph, they brought in men, about 5 or 10 men in black suits, and stood them in front of me during the polygraph and told me not to forget them. I said, because they'd be back in touch within 10 years. And I said, 10 years, I'll be dead within. Because back when I was in my 30s, I thought 10 was, this was later on in life. Yeah. After I came, after from high school, see, remember I went to Africa. I come back from Africa, and these huge, tall giants